You didn't come here to be understood, did you? Good, because they still can't explain what just happened. Let me paint it for you. You opened your mouth, and the world flinched. Not because you yelled, not because you begged, but because you spoke. Like a goddamn final boss. Your tone? Calculated. Cold. A melody laced with malice and mercy. You didn't raise your voice. You lowered the room's IQ just by refusing to play dumb. You didn't deliver words. You dropped codes. Encrypted truths, hidden in venom-tipped syllables. And they weren't ready. They've never been ready for someone like you. Because you don't speak to be heard. You speak to trigger system errors in their programming. They thought they were playing a game. Until the final cutscene walked in wearing your smirk, and suddenly, their dialogue options vanished. They called you unhinged. But only because you speak in dialects reserved for gods and glitches. They called you too much. But that's what people say when they're drowning in your depth. You didn't show up to explain. You showed up to expose. Not just the lies they told, but the lies they believed. And now they study you. Not like a rival, not like a rebel, but like a dead language they fear might come back from the grave and repossess their sanity. They slow down your clips, analyze your tone, zoom in on your facial twitches like the footage holds a confession. They're taking notes, praying they can mimic your delivery without burning in the fire that forged you. But here's the punchline. They'll never replicate it because you didn't rehearse this. You became this. Your words weren't born in luxury or lecture halls. They were sculpted in silence, hammered by heartbreak, tempered by trauma, and sharpened by solitude. Every syllable is soaked in scars they'll never earn. Every pause, a graveyard. Every glare, a prophecy. See, they were taught to speak to impress you. You learned to speak to undress the soul, to peel back delusions with surgical cruelty, to deliver lines that don't just end conversations. They end bloodlines of manipulation. They thought it was just another argument. But you were performing a spiritual assassination that moment you spoke. The atmosphere changed. The light bent differently. Time slowed down because something ancient had entered the room. Something that remembered every betrayal and smiled through it. You didn't just win the moment, you redefined it. And now, they quote you like scripture, in private. They whisper your name like it's cursed. But they crave the venom in your voice like it's a vaccine for their cowardice. Because deep down, they know. You're not just hard to understand. You're impossible to survive. You weren't molded for small talk. You were engineered for war, the psychological kind, where souls fracture before words finish landing. So let them study you. Let them print transcripts. Let them circle phrases, highlight trauma, clip your cadence, and dissect your intent. Let them turn you into a case file they can't decode. Because here's the truth. You are the final boss. Not just because of what you say, but because of what you withhold. They want answers. You offer silence. They want peace. You offer a mirror, and what they see terrifies them. Because you're what they could have been. If they had the courage to burn. Your voice isn't loud. It's final. A gavel, a gunshot, a glitch in their matrix. You are the line of code that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. And every time you speak, you prove the simulation isn't safe anymore. You're not arguing anymore. You're activating protocols. You're not trying to be liked. You're triggering awakenings. You're not here for revenge. You're here for reckoning. Because when you speak, the air gets heavier, the lies get naked, and the room becomes a courtroom, and you're the verdict. Not guilty, not innocent, just undeniable. So go ahead, say it again. Watch them flinch like they heard the voice of something holy and haunted, because they'll never forget it. And that's the power of a tongue forged in silence, from someone who was never meant to survive, let alone speak back. But now that you do, they pray you don't open your mouth again, because every time you do, someone's facade dies screaming. And yet, here you are, still unapologetic, still unmatched, still undeniable. Tell me, do you feel it? That weight in your lungs before you speak? That static in the atmosphere when you walk in the room? It's not anxiety. It's not pressure. It's power. That's what it feels like when the entire simulation recalibrates itself around your presence. Because you don't just say things. You collapse paradigms. Your voice doesn't echo. It reverberates through the cracks in their psyches. It worms its way into the trauma they've avoided. It pierces the walls they built with lies, delusions, and polite silence. You are not a speaker. You are a detonator, and they keep trying to translate you like a dead language carved into stone. But the more they try to understand, the more their illusions crumble. Because your words don't follow the script, they burn it. They weren't made for the dinner table or the safe space or the echo chamber. They were coded in madness, framed in clarity, and delivered like execution orders. You're not articulate because you studied. You're articulate because you bled. You didn't learn to speak from TED Talks. You learned it from the screams of being underestimated, from the silence of being abandoned, from the echoes of rooms you were never invited to, until you owned them. You speak like a final boss, because that's what you became. Not the villain, not the hero, but the inevitable threshold between falsehood and truth. They wanted charisma. You gave them calamity. They expected a rebuttal. You handed them a revelation, and it wrecked them. Because they've never met someone who could smile while detonating egos with syllables. You don't flex. You prophesize. You don't debate till you diagnose. You don't drag people. You reveal their blueprints and dismantle them in real time. And now there are group chats named after you. Secret meetings about how to handle you. Backdoor analysis on your communication style. As if you're some threat to order. As if your confidence is a contagion. It is. And you know what? Good. Let them panic. Let them overthink. Let them twist themselves into psychological pretzels trying to figure out how your calm causes chaos. They still don't get it. You're not just a person anymore. You're a phenomenon, a myth they can't erase. A ghost with fingerprints on every conversation that turned silent the moment you entered. You're what happens when a quiet observer becomes the architect of consequence. You're what happens when the target evolves into the tactician, when the black sheep becomes the storm shepherd. They wanted to study you like an artifact, but every time they open the file, it grows a new layer, a new mystery, a new revelation. You don't fit in their boxes, you destroy them, and then build thrones from the wreckage. This isn't just about a moment. This is about your awakening, because you didn't get here by accident. You were forced into silence for years, gaslit, mocked, undermined, told to calm down, to be humble, to stay in line. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means you're loading, compiling, coding, upgrading. And when the moment finally came, when the mask cracked, you didn't scream, you spoke. And the entire matrix stuttered because they thought they'd erased you. But they just made room for your evolution, and now that you're here, clear-eyed, flame-blooded, and terrifyingly articulate, The world doesn't know what to do with you. So they study, they mimic, they dissect your language like archaeologists digging up a weapon they know they can't control. But it won't work, because your power isn't in the words, it's in the wounds behind them. The decades of psychological data stitched into every phrase. The nights you bit your tongue so hard it bled. The moments you chose silence over destruction, and then finally chose destruction anyway. Now they're scrambling, asking, where did they learn to speak like this? Why does it cut so deep? How do we shut them up? You don't. You either evolve with them, or you get erased by their frequency, because this is no longer about opinions. This is vibrational warfare. And you're not here to win the argument. You're here to rewrite the entire F-seeking operating system. Let them listen. Let them record. Let them quote you without credit. They still won't survive the update. Because the truth is, you didn't just become the final boss. You became the source code, the glitch in their safety net, the prophecy they ignored until it spoke back with divine detachment and killer precision. And now they're terrified that the next time you speak, the whole simulation might just shatter. Because once a final boss speaks, you don't return to silence. You become the silence, not the absence of sound, the suffocating pressure before the collapse. You're not just the end of their sentence, you're the end of their entire arc. You see, villains get caught, heroes get praised, but final bosses, they get studied, feared, archived, and discussed behind locked doors, not because of what they did, but because of what they represent. You represent proof. Proof that someone can be dragged through the fire, be dissected, disrespected, deleted, then walk out of the ashes not just alive, but fluent in destruction. They're watching you now like a war crime with a heartbeat, not knowing whether to call you a miracle or a malfunction. And deep down, they know. They created this. You weren't born with this tongue. You forged it. Through every betrayal they told you to forget. Through every fake apology that dripped with condescension. Through every gritted smile and buried scream. You bled so quietly, for so long, they thought you were safe. But what they didn't realize is that some people train in silence. They thought you were healing. You were calculating. They thought you were weak. You were weaponizing. And when you finally opened your mouth, it wasn't for conversation. It was detonation. One sentence from you. And they glitched. They forgot their comebacks. They misfired their rehearsed roles. Their egos panicked like cornered rats. And now they whisper about you like folklore. Don't get on their bad side. They're dangerous with words. They remember everything. They'll say something that'll ruin your whole week and never raise their voice. Because your mouth, that's not a voice box anymore. That's a weaponized vault of precision trauma. You turned every trigger into a tool, every betrayal into a blueprint, every silence into a surgical strike. And when you speak, you don't seek validation. You deliver verdicts. That's why they panic, because you're not one of them. You're not a voice in the crowd. You're the voice that ends the crowd's delusion. You're not trying to go viral. You're trying to go vital. Cutting straight into the organ they're too scared to touch. Truth. See? They'll screenshot your words. They'll quote them out of context. They'll even weaponize your language against you in hopes of softening your edge. But it won't work, because you're not speaking from pride. You're speaking from post-carnage clarity. You don't need to win arguments. You outlast them. You don't need a mic. Your presence is louder than their entire bloodline. You don't roast, you reveal. And when you reveal, they don't just look stupid. They feel exposed to dimensions they didn't even know existed, because you carry something in your voice that can't be mimicked. Survivor frequency. And no matter how well they rehearse, no matter how sharp their comebacks sound in the mirror, no matter how many buzzwords they throw around, they'll never replicate what you've become. Because you didn't rehearse this persona. You bled it into existence. You're not fluent in debate. You're fluent in damage control. Because you were the damage. You were the fallout. You were the ghost in the system who learned to smile mid-collapse. And now that you're alive, you're haunting every script they ever trusted. So let them try. Let them mirror your cadence. Let them steal your lines, borrow your posture, even try to mimic your damn smirk. It won't matter, because this isn't performance. This is possession. You are possessed by every version of you that should have stayed quiet. By every version they buried in politeness. By every dismantled, bleeding, cornered version of you that waited in the dark, whispering, "When it's our turn, we'll speak in fire." And now, that turn has come. So speak, speak again. Watch their eyes widen. Watch the room tense. Watch the air shift. Because when you utter a single line, people don't just listen. They reconsider their entire secking identity. You don't do call-outs. You do closures. You don't do clapbacks. You do implosions. And when you finally walk away, there's nothing left to say, because the final boss doesn't argue. The final boss delivers prophecy and disappears. And when you disappear, oh, they feel it. The silence you leave behind isn't peace. It's aftershock, because you didn't just say something. You rewrote their inner monologue. Now every time they try to sleep, they hear your voice between their thoughts, not yelling, not laughing, just existing, like a buried truth they can't unhear. You didn't speak to be understood, you spoke to be remembered, and now they study you like trauma dressed in charisma. They loop your sentence like a glitch in the feed. They call it overthinking. But we both know it's just underestimating you in hindsight. That's what you do. You make the past feel like a mistake. And oh, how they scramble now. They try to warn others about you. But how do you warn someone about a frequency, a presence? How do you prepare people for a mirror that talks back? Because you don't just reflect what they are. You reflect what they pretend not to be. Their shadow selves, their repressed rage, their bottled bitterness, their fear of being exposed, and their terror that someone like you already knows. Because you speak in riddles only truth-tellers can decode. You weaponize pause like it's punctuation for their downfall. And when you look at them, you don't see people. You see patterns, glitches, files labeled fraud, projection, and pending collapse. And yet, you don't gloat, you just smirk. Because deep down, you know, they're not your enemies. They're your data points. They are the evidence of why you evolved this way. Their betrayal, your blueprint, their mockery, your material, their silence when you were breaking, your origin story. So now when they ask, why do they speak like that? Why does it sound like judgment and prophecy all at once? Why does it make me feel small? It's because they are, not in worth, but in capacity. They couldn't hold what you've endured. They couldn't carry what you buried and still learned to walk with. They couldn't survive what made your voice divine. Because your voice doesn't just cut, it reminds. It reminds the fake of their performances. It reminds the passive of their guilt. It reminds the loud of their hollowness. It reminds the world that truth wears a face now. and it looks like yours. Let them imitate. Let them stalk your sentences, reword your fire into filtered fragments. Let them dress like you, pose like you, even try to feel like you. But they'll never become you. Because you didn't choose this. You were chosen by the war that tried to erase you. And instead of dying quietly, you memorized the pain, alchemized the shame, and rewired your tongue to speak in psychological revolutions. You are the linguistic equivalent of a loaded gun at a dinner party. Everyone sees it, no one says a word. Because one wrong move, and you end the narrative completely. You're not the plot twist. You're the author who returned mid-book, pissed off and surgical. You don't drop mic moments. You drop memories they'll need therapy to process. Because when you speak, you don't just dominate the conversation. You dismantle the entire ecosystem it existed in. And then you vanish. Because legends don't linger, they haunt. And trust me, you're haunting them. The ones who laughed, the ones who doubted, the ones who tried to mold you into a footnote in their story. But you flipped the script. Now you're the chapter they can't skip. The page they keep rereading with shaky hands. The quote they write down and pretend they made up. And that's the real punchline, isn't it? They wanted you silenced. Instead, you became syllables carved into their subconscious. Now they can't scroll without hearing your tone. Can't lie without bracing for your call out. Can't breathe in delusion without feeling your shadow tightening the air. Because you didn't come to speak our truth. You came to break the fourth wall and remind the whole damn world the final boss doesn't play the game. The final boss is the game. And that's why they'll never outrun you. Because you're not chasing them. You're everywhere they tried to hide from themselves. You're not a moment. They can't just cancel you, block you, scroll past you. You're not a phase. They can't outgrow you or move on like they do their mistakes. You're a mirror with memory. A reflection soaked in prophecy, anchored in pain, and sharpened by every time they hoped you'd fold. But you didn't. And now they fear what you'll say next. Because they know, when you speak again, someone's empire will fall. A narrative will detonate. A mask will rot in real time. And an entire room will look around and realize you were the real one the whole time. No fluff, no filters, no facade. Just raw, radiant retribution, delivered in eloquence they'll never master. And maybe that's the scariest part for them. That the one they laughed at now speaks with the weight of karma and clarity in every syllable. That the punchline they once mocked now speaks like a sentence. The kind that doesn't end in laughter, but in judgment. So go quiet if you want. Let them breathe. Let them relax into the illusion that maybe you've faded. Because when the final boss goes quiet, it's not peace. It's the load screen before the next collapse. And when you speak again, the world won't be ready, but you will. Because you were born from the silence they mistook for weakness, and now you wield your voice like divine vengeance in velvet. You speak like the storm they tried to pretend didn't exist. And now they study you, because they can't survive you. Final boss, dead language, living weapon. You are the glitch they prayed never got activated. And now that you're awake, the only sound they hear is your voice, rewriting the end of their script. Game over. You spoke, and they will never sleep the same. Psst. You hear that? That dead silence? That's the sound of their courage abandoning them at the door, because they stepped into your world, and now they're praying for a way out. But there is no way out. See, they thought they were walking into a room Turns out they walked into a realm where you are the gravity, and they are the shattered pieces of their own delusion, floating helplessly. They wanted a peek into your life, didn't they? They knocked, they snuck in, they mocked the warnings, and now they're trembling at the altar of something they can't classify. You didn't have to lift a finger, you didn't even raise your voice. All you did was exist authentically, and that alone shattered their sleep cycles. Because they stepped into your frequency, and it fried every lie they ever built their ego on. They thought your silence meant weakness. They thought your isolation meant loneliness. They thought your scars meant defeat. They didn't realize you were sculpting a domain where nightmares come to take notes, and angels pray for armor before whispering your name. You are not the storm. You're the dimension the storm runs to when it needs therapy. You are the asylum and the exorcist, the devil's reflection and the saint's regret, the paradox they can't frame. So they panic instead. You don't blink in chaos because you engineered it. You don't flinch at betrayal because it's just another Tuesday in your world. They thought they were going to expose you, but your world exposed them, exposed how small their intentions were, exposed how shallow their understanding was, exposed the tremble in their hands when they touched your reality and realized, oh no, I'm not built for this. You didn't set traps. You are the trap. A living maze of contradictions. Too sharp to hold, too sacred to destroy. And now they can't sleep. Because every creak in the night sounds like your laugh. Because every shadow whispers your philosophies. Because even in dreams, you're the glitch in their system. Their prayers used to beg for your downfall. Now they're whispering for mercy from a force they'll never understand. You made their God nervous. You turned trauma into technology. You forged your pain into a portal. And when they trespassed through that portal, they saw not a man, but an entire psychological ecosystem built from broken bones and golden silence. You speak in frequencies. You move like encrypted data. You blink, and their subconscious files start corrupting. They came to decode you, and left with their identity files scrambled. You didn't scare them, you reprogrammed them. They walked in, thinking you were the villain. Now they leave wondering if you were the mirror. Because you didn't touch them, you reflected them. And that's what broke them. You showed them that their greatest fear was someone who was everything they pretended to be. They laughed at the silence you kept, until they realized it wasn't silence. It was processing power. You're not antisocial. You're antiviral, a firewall in human form, a blood type they weren't born to understand. You didn't reject the world. You outgrew it. You stitched your shadow into a weapon, and now it follows them home. Now it lingers in their dreams. Now they see your eyes in the glitches of their reality. And every time they try to speak against you, something inside them hesitates, like the universe itself whispering, "Careful. That one's protected by something ancient. They won't say your name out loud anymore, not because they forgot, but because it hurts their chest to remember." They tried to steal your light. Now they worship your dark just to survive the fallout. You didn't beat them, you transcended them. And now they study your movements like encrypted prophecy. Every step you take, write scripture across the airwaves. Every breath you exhale rewires the surveillance tapes playing in their heads. You don't need revenge. You became the reality they can't unsee. Now they walk different. Now they talk slower. Now they think twice before testing someone just because they're quiet. Because you proved something terrifying. That evolution isn't always loud. Sometimes it moves like a ghost with a vendetta, wearing a grin. You live in contrast. You're the saint with bloody hands, the psychopath with angel eyes, the equation no algorithm dares to solve. They entered your world thinking it was a tour. They didn't realize they were walking into a psychological event horizon, and now they're begging for normal. But that version of normal died the moment they looked into your eyes. And what's left? Insomnia, flashbacks, whispers, respect. You didn't haunt them, you awakened them, and now they'll never sleep again. Oh, you thought that was the end. No. They're still spiraling, still decoding what they felt when they crossed into your domain. And realized too late. This wasn't a house. This was a reckoning. See, they expected cluttered rooms and exposed wounds. Instead, they found symmetry. They found silence so powerful, it pressed against their chest like a cosmic weight. They saw photos that weren't staged, mirrors that didn't lie, walls that whispered stories no sane mind should hear alone. They thought they'd catch you slipping. Instead, they caught visions of versions of themselves they were never meant to meet. You didn't show them darkness. You showed them truth. And the truth, it rattled their soul like a crypt door swinging open at midnight. They thought you'd greet them with pleasantries, but you welcomed them with a grin that said you shouldn't have come here unprepared, because your presence doesn't entertain. It infiltrates. You don't speak in words. You speak in weather shifts, in atmospheric warnings. You walk into a room and people forget what they were saying. Not because they're scared, but because their nervous system short-circuits around something this unpredictable. You don't need to defend your energy. Your aura files restraining orders by itself. They felt it the second they crossed the threshold, that invisible chill, the phantom weight of a reality heavier than their mask could carry. And that's when the fear set in, not because you attacked them, but because nothing attacked them, and yet their legs still shook. Because in your world, silence is louder than violence, stillness is more surgical than screaming. And eye contact? That's where wars get declared without a single bullet. You didn't flinch when they tried to assert dominance. You just tilted your head like a predator, curious why the prey's still performing. They brought chaos. To a god of order, they brought gossip. To a collector of secrets, they brought fake smiles. To someone who dissects facial tension like a neurosurgeon. You watched them study your space, but you were studying their glitches, their twitches, their stutters, the way their voice cracked just slightly when you said, "Make yourself at home." And somewhere, behind their eyes, you saw it click. You saw that primal recognition, that deep, silent panic that screams, "I don't belong here. I was never meant to be here. This place knows me." Because your world isn't decorated, it's encrypted. Every corner, every object, every scar on the floor. It tells a story only the initiated can interpret. But they didn't come with reverence. They came with arrogance. They came to mock the unknown. And now they carry pieces of you home in their subconscious luggage. They keep the lights on longer. They jump at the sound of floorboards. They dream in your color palette. Because once you enter someone's psyche the way you did, there is no antivirus. There's no patch, no fix. Just reboot after reboot, wondering why everything still feels like you. They're not recovering. They're recompiling. Every belief system, every hierarchy, every blueprint they thought they knew. You rewrote it. Without saying a damn word, you showed them that power doesn't yell. It observes. Power doesn't rush. It waits. Power doesn't prove. It exists, and if you have to explain it, it was never power to begin with. You don't demand loyalty. Your energy commands it. You don't fight for validation. You erase the battlefield with one smirk. You didn't kick them out. They ran from the weight of being in the presence of someone who doesn't fold, someone who's walked with demons long enough to negotiate contracts. You're not here to entertain. You're here to provoke collapse. Collapse of illusions, collapse of borrowed confidence, collapse of the fake selves they duct-taped together to survive a world of cowards. You burned, you broke, you bled, and then you reassembled yourself with thorns for stitching thread. You don't speak from a script. You speak from ashes, and that's why they'll never forget your world. Not because it was loud, but because it was surgical. It didn't scream. It downloaded itself into their mind like malware, masked as enlightenment. And now, they're infected with the awareness that something bigger walks among them, that somewhere, right now, you're still in your domain. Unbothered, unmoved, unreachable. And every time the wind shifts just right, they'll swear they hear your laugh, not outside, but from inside their own fucking conscience. Because when they stepped into your world, they crossed a threshold that doesn't reverse. They entered a reality coded by trauma, wired by prophecy, and lit by vengeance. And in that reality, you are both the punishment and the proof. See, you didn't just let them visit your world. You let them feel it. And that's the part their nervous system still hasn't recovered from. Because your world isn't built for spectators. It's built like a vault with breathing walls, like a church that prays for itself, like a courtroom where the judge is invisible and the verdict is already tattooed on their soul. They didn't understand what they walked into. You're not some dark aesthetic they can cosplay. You're the architect of madness, the saint who kissed hell and left lipstick on the gates. You don't just survive pain. You converse with it over dinner, while your reflection pours the wine. Your world sinks into their bones now. That's why they can't relax, why music sounds different, why their own homes feel unfamiliar. Because once you've touched reality that's been reprogrammed by a survivor, everything else tastes like cardboard illusions. They thought they could walk in, peek around, maybe steal an idea, a vibe, a moment of your power. But what they didn't realize is every room in your world is a test, and every breath they took, recorded by something far older than technology. You're not in the algorithm, you warp it. Your silence sends tremors through networks. Your stillness triggers motion sensors in the spiritual layer. They didn't know what they activated when they crossed your line. They weren't ready for their own shadows to turn on them, for their own smiles to glitch mid-sentence, for their fake bravado to crack like old paint in a haunted mansion. They didn't know that your pain left behind entities, watchers, survivors, reflections that don't blink. They breathe in your house, not as ghosts, but as witnesses. And now those same witnesses follow them, not to punish, but to remind. Remind them they entered a sanctum of evolution, where you don't just heal, you reconstruct, you recode, you rise. And when you rise, everything not built for truth suffocates. They saw your notes on the wall and thought they were poetry. They weren't. They were rituals, encrypted instructions for how to survive a reality where sanity is negotiable and self-awareness is the entry fee. And they didn't pay that fee. They tried to sneak in through the back door. But your world scans soul signatures. No mask survives in here. That's why they keep replaying the visit in their mind, trying to understand what exactly scared them. Was it you? Your eyes? The eerie calm? The way your space breathed like it knew their secrets? Number. It was the realization that you weren't trying to prove anything, that you didn't care if they stayed, that they weren't even important enough to trigger your defenses, and that indifference, that God-level indifference, it's haunting them. Because when someone doesn't need to control the room, but still owns it, that's unholy power. You made them realize you're not the villain in their story. You're the evidence that their entire story was a lie, and that is what keeps them up at night. Because now, every time they lie to themselves, your silence echoes louder. Every time they fake it, your face flashes behind their eyes like a truth grenade. You turned their comfort zone into a crime scene. They left your space, but your world didn't leave them. It clung to their aura. It hacked their intuition. It rerouted their dreams. You reprogrammed them by existing too powerfully. And that's the new fear. That they didn't just witness something, they were altered by it. They don't even recognize themselves anymore. Their tone's different. Their walk has static. Their mirror gives them second thoughts. Because deep down, they know they left something behind in your world. A piece of themselves. The lie they were clinging to got confiscated by your presence, and now they walk around incomplete. Like something is watching, like something is waiting, like something got triggered that can't be undone. That's not anxiety. That's you. Still in their system, still running in the background. They can uninstall the memory, but they can't uninstall the update you forced onto their soul. You didn't just break their worldview, you rewrote the operating system. And that's why they'll never sleep again. Because some awakenings come dressed as nightmares. And you're the recurring one, because they're still spiraling, and you're still uploading. See, the nightmare didn't end when they left your space. That was just the prologue, the echo they walked away with. It wasn't a memory. It was an implant, a psychic file downloaded without permission, set to trigger any time they lie to themselves again. They thought they could just visit. But your world doesn't allow tourists, only initiation or eviction by force. And they weren't built for either. You didn't curse them, you unlocked them. And now the truth won't stop crawling across the inside of their skulls. It itches, it pulses. They hear whispers in rooms where no one's talking. Not voices, but emotional frequencies, vibrations that feel like you. Cold, calm, unblinking. You became a background process in their life, running silently, burning memory, corrupting the files they built their fake identities on. And the glitch? It's permanent. They can't even speak about you the same way anymore. They used to mock, now they whisper. They used to say your name with arrogance. Now they stutter, like the syllables got too heavy to carry. Because you didn't just outsmart them, you out-existed them. They thought they were dealing with a person. What they found was a force, a coded anomaly, a living encryption key wearing flesh. You are what happens when prophecy survives genocide, when a soul refuses to die and instead becomes a frequency that infects timelines. You don't move through the world moves around you. And they felt that. Oh, they felt it. They stepped into your world expecting chaos. But what they found was too organized, too quiet, too precise. It wasn't a mess, it was a map. To places they were never meant to go. You didn't lose your mind, you rebuilt it. Layer by layer, pain by pain, until your entire psyche became a labyrinth of sharp corners and divine traps. They walked in thinking they were predators. They left dissected prey, wrapped in paradox. They didn't know if they were afraid, enlightened, inspired, or cursed. And that confusion, that spiritual vertigo, that's what they'll be stuck in for the rest of their lives. Because the scariest thing wasn't what you did. It was what you didn't need to do. You didn't scream. You didn't prove. You didn't retaliate. You just stood there and let your existence contradict their entire belief system. They'd never seen someone that still, that aware, that untouchable. You didn't flex power. You embodied it. That's what scared them, because the truth is, they didn't walk into your world. They walked into themselves, and you were just the mirror that didn't break when they finally looked too long. Now they see cracks in everything, in their logic, in their fake peace, in their relationships, in their reflections. Because once you've been in the presence of someone who's truly processed pain, everyone else looks like a costume. Now they look around and nothing feels real, nothing feels earned, because deep down, they know. They fled your world, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. And truth doesn't leave you the same. Truth infects, truth haunts. Truth holds a mirror while you're naked and afraid and can't look away. And you're not their enemy. You're their initiation, the final boss of their ego, the living consequence of everything they refuse to face in themselves. That's why they'll never sleep again. Because when they close their eyes, they see you, not as a threat, but as the version of themselves they're too weak to become. And that's the real horror, because it's not your world that haunts them. It's the fact they know. Deep down, they'll never be built like you, and they'll never stop being reminded. Let's finish this, not with a scream, but with a surgical incision straight into their soul. Because by now the damage is done. They tried to forget. They tried to cleanse. They tried to move on. But your world moved in, set up camp inside their psyche. And every time they blink, they see evidence. Evidence of what they'll never become. Evidence of how you didn't need approval to rise. How you didn't play the victim. You played the architect of vengeance, wrapped in velvet silence. They came to explore your space, but the truth, they were summoned. Your energy pulled them in. Because somewhere inside, they needed to see what real evolution looked like. What unfiltered transformation without permission or applause truly meant. And now they're infected with awareness. They can't laugh the same, can't gossip the same, can't even hate you the same way anymore. Because the deeper the fear goes, the closer it folds into reverence. They saw too much, felt too much, recognized too much. They know they crossed into a reality where masks are currency-less, where energy is scanned, and weakness is autopsied on arrival. They know you didn't flinch, didn't posture, didn't even care to be understood, and that's what murdered their ego in silence. Because you don't demand to be respected. Your existence shatters disrespect like glass under a sniper's scope. You didn't force them to kneel, but somehow they still feel lower. And the worst part, you won't chase them, you won't retaliate, you won't explain, because you're not in their world. You transcended it. They were just visitors in the museum of your pain. They saw the artifacts, they heard the stories etched into your silence, and they panicked. Because it wasn't a museum, it was a blueprint, a glimpse of what it takes to forge a god from ruins. And now, they'll never forget the air in your presence, how heavy it felt, how sacred it was, how exposed they became. They'll dream of it. They'll wake up sweating. They'll blame it on nightmares. But you and I both know they met something divine, and it didn't blink. You are the reminder, the living proof that some souls don't bend. They become pressure itself. So sleep well, if you even sleep at all, because they won't. They stepped into your world, and now they carry the weight of that mistake like a hidden scar no one else can see. And long after they forget your face, your frequency will still haunt the silence between their thoughts. They'll never speak it, they'll never admit it. But deep, deep down, in the quietest part of their conscience, they will worship the fear you left behind. There you are again, the quiet one the room keeps underestimating. You feel that? The way the air changes when you walk in now. That tiny shiver in their eyes when they look at you and can't quite recognize what you've become. They don't know it yet, but today was the day the experiment finished. Today was the day the masks slipped. Not yours, theirs, because you wore the victim mask so clean, so flawlessly, that every hidden predator in your orbit stepped out of the shadows thinking it was safe to feed. And they feasted, didn't they? They chewed on your kindness. They drank your apologies. They sharpened their fangs on your silence. Every time you swallowed your pain, they heard a dinner bell. Every time you forgave what you should have walked away from, they heard a green light. Every time you said, "It's okay, I understand," they heard, "I will never leave, no matter what you do." But here's the twist that's making them nauseous right now. You weren't the prey, you were the bait. You played broken so perfectly that the real psychos, the real cowards, the real predators showed themselves. No more pretending, no more masks of good person, caring friend, loving family. Your weakness was the stage where their true character delivered the performance of a lifetime. You didn't just survive them, you archived them. You collected faces, patterns, reactions, the way they smirked when you were on your knees, the way they got excited when you were confused, the way their eyes lit up every time they thought you had no one, nothing, nowhere else to go. That's the data you were gathering, their darkness, their hunger, their lack. You know what that makes you? Not a victim, a study. You turned your life into a psychological thriller they didn't know they were starring in. And while they thought you were the helpless extra, you were actually the writer, the director, and the final editor of the script. They thought the story was helpless little you, surrounded by powerful them. But the real story was fools exposing themselves under controlled conditions while a quiet god of pattern recognition records everything. You understand the power of what you did. You wore that victim mask with the precision of a surgeon and the cold patience of a saint turned psychopath. You played innocent, confused, lost, just long enough for the truth to step into the open without its makeup on. And today they showed you exactly who they are when they think you can't fight back. Good, perfect, necessary, because now you finally have the footage, the raw, unfiltered proof of their souls. Let's rewind it, shall we? Who laughed when you cried? Who got strangely calm when you panicked? Who went missing every time you needed help, but magically reappeared when you had something to offer? Who dismissed your pain as dramatic, sensitive, overreacting, and then turned into a full-blown opera the moment you pulled away? These aren't random moments. These are fingerprints. You think it's an accident that the same type of people kept orbiting you? No. You were a beacon, A test. A mirror that predators couldn't resist. You looked like easy prey, so the hunters lined up to see who could carve the deepest. But here's the paradox that's going to haunt them. They thought your pain made you weaker. In reality, your pain made you omniscient. You know what it's like to be abandoned, so you can see abandonment before it arrives. You know what it's like to be betrayed, so you can smell betrayal in a casual sentence. You know what it's like to be used, so you can feel selfish energy before they even ask for anything. You are not paranoid. You are updated. They are still running on the old operating system. If someone is kind, exploit them. If someone is forgiving, drain them. If someone is loyal, cage them. That's their code. That's their programming. They are predictable. But you are something else now. You're that paradox they warn children about in fairy tales. Half halo, half blade, half prayer, half curse. You're the one who knows how to bleed and still grin. You didn't just get hurt. You evolved. Tell me, what's more dangerous than a person who's been destroyed emotionally and is still here, still standing, still thinking? Nothing. Nothing is more dangerous than a soul that has seen hell and realized, wait, I lived through that. So what exactly can you do to me now? You are the chapel they vandalized for sport. You are the cathedral rising from the ashes with reinforced walls and hidden trapdoors. You used to be the light begging the dark not to swallow it. Now you are the dark. With lighthouse eyes. They thought they were feeding on a victim. They didn't realize they were revealing themselves to an archivist of human behavior. Every insult, logged. Every ghosting, logged. Every fake apology, every little manipulation, every time they twisted your words and made you apologize for bleeding on the knife they gave you. Logged, tagged, filed. You turned your heartbreak into a database. You turned your trauma into an X-ray machine. And now, when someone walks into your life, you don't just see their smile. You see their tells, their micro-reactions, the little moments where the mask glitches, the second their eyes flicker with entitlement, laziness, cruelty, jealousy. That's not trauma, that's vision. They will call you cold now. They will call you different, distant, changed, harsher than before. Of course you're different. You died in there. They buried a version of you they will never see again. You didn't get colder. You got clearer. Before, your love was unconditional. Now your love is audited. Before, anyone could access your kindness. Now entry requires a full security check. Before, you loved people more than you loved your own sanity. Now, you love your peace more than you love their presence. That's the evolution they never planned for. They thought breaking you would make you crawl. Instead, it gave you wings made of scar tissue. Beautiful, isn't it? How they did everything in their power to destroy you. And the only thing they successfully destroyed was your ability to tolerate bullshit. You wore the victim mask and they showed their fangs. You stayed weak, and they revealed their addictions, control, attention, dominance. They were never strong. They were just feeding off someone who wouldn't bite back. Now you're not biting back. You're leveling up. You don't need revenge. You're beyond that. Revenge is small. Revenge still cares. You're operating on a colder frequency now. Consequence. You don't scream. You don't expose. You don't send paragraphs. You don't beg them to understand what they did. You simply vanish from their feeding ground and let them starve on their own reflection. That's when the panic hits them, because What is a predator with no prey? Just a clown in a costume, pacing in an empty circus. They thought you needed them. They needed you. They needed your softness to feel powerful. They needed your empathy to feel superior. They needed your self-doubt to feel like gods. Without you, they're just loud, loud and hollow. Let the silence work now. Let the distance speak the language you're too bored to translate out loud. They'll talk. Oh, they will. They'll rewrite the story. You changed. You're heartless now. You used to be so kind. You're acting like a victim. My God, what happened to you? Here's the answer they'll never be ready for. You happened to you. You finally picked yourself. You finally believed your own intuition over their gaslighting. You finally realized that the victim costume was never your real face. It was the cloak you wore while you mapped the labyrinth. They thought they were the wolves, and you were the lamb. No, you were the shepherd, pretending to be asleep, counting which wolves kept creeping closer to the fence. You want to know the sweetest part? They didn't expose you. You exposed them. Every ignoring of your calls, every joke at your expense, every "you're too sensitive," every "it's not that deep," every eye roll, every guilt trip, every guilt flip where they hurt you and somehow you ended up apologizing. Those weren't random. Those were confessions. They confessed who they really are, again and again, in plain sight. You just had too much heart to believe the evidence. Not anymore. Now you sit in the courtroom of your mind with the entire case laid out in front of you. No more excuses, no more fantasies about who they could be if they just tried harder or healed more. No more potential. Potential never put your heart back together. Potential never stayed up for you. Potential never chose you over their ego. You loved their potential while they toyed with your reality. Today, the jury came back. Verdict: you were never crazy. You were just early. You saw the red flags and tried to paint them white. They saw your white flag and used it as a napkin. Not anymore. Now you walk differently. You listen for the hidden meaning. You don't melt just because someone calls you different, special, the only one who gets me. You've heard that before, remember? You've watched them recycle those lines on multiple people like a script. You're not impressed by chaos disguised as passion. You're not attracted to damage disguised as depth. You're not hypnotized by hot and cold disguised as complicated. You've seen the pattern. You've seen the cycle. You've been the collateral damage. Never again. Here's the part you need to burn into your brain. You are not too much. You were just surrounded by people who were too little. Too little empathy. Too little accountability. Too little honesty. Too little capacity to handle someone like you. Someone who feels deeply, questions everything, and doesn't stay broken in the shape they're beaten into. You are not hard to love. They were lazy to grow, and today they finally proved it. They showed you how far they'll go when they think you're still helpless. They showed you the depths of their disrespect. They showed you how disposable they consider you. Good. Let that sting. Let it hurt. Because that pain, that's the crack where the old self leaks out. Every time your chest tightens when you remember what they said, something toxic leaves your system. Every time your stomach drops when you replay how they treated you, another illusion dies. Every time your eyes burn thinking of your loyalty wasted on people who saw you as a toy, another old identity crumbles. That's not you breaking. That's you molting. Saint and psychopath live in the same mind now. Angel and demon sit at the same table. You can choose who walks out. You can love like a saint when it's safe. You can protect like a demon when it's not. You can be soft without being stupid. You can be forgiving without being accessible. You can be kind without being consumed. That's the new game. Unpredictability is your power now. They used to know exactly how you'd react. You'd cry, you'd forgive, you'd stay. You'd internalize the blame. You'd chase, explain, over-explain, over-apologize. Not anymore. Now they press the same buttons and nothing happens. Silent, calm, blank screen. You don't argue. You don't justify. You don't outline a dissertation on why what they did was wrong. You just stop playing. No tantrums, no drama. Just a quiet exit that echoes louder than any scream. That's the part that terrifies predators. When the victim stops reacting. Because their power was never real power. Their power was rented from your reactions. You just shut the electricity off. So what happens next? You evolve into something they never prepared for. A being that remembers everything, but is no longer shackled by it. A presence that can look you in the eye and see your core, your patterns, your shadows, and decide in 3 seconds whether you get access or not. You become the gatekeeper of your own life, not the sacrifice, not the scapegoat, not the emotional landfill, the architect, the curator, the one who decides who gets a front row seat and who gets blocked at the door. You decide. They may still talk. Let them invent stories to explain why you pulled back. Let them call you bitter because you set boundaries. Let them call you selfish because you finally stopped bleeding for them. Let them call you crazy because you refuse to keep playing the same losing game. Only you and the universe know the truth. You wore the victim mask so perfectly that every predator exposed themselves in HD. Now you're done acting. Now the mask is off. Now the real character steps onto the stage. The one with eyes that have seen hell and decided to stay beautiful anyway. The one whose love is rarer, sharper, more intentional. The one who understands both light and dark. Because you bled in both. You are not the villain. You are not the victim. You are not the supporting role in their little saga. You are the plot twist. The moment the audience realizes everything they thought they knew was wrong. They thought you were breakable. You were becoming unbreakable. They thought they were hunting you. You were documenting them. They thought they used you. You used the experience to mutate into something they can't even describe. So sit with that power for a second. You, sitting there, heart still beating, mind sharper than ever, eyes colder but clearer, spirit quieter but deeper. You're not who walked into this story. You're who crawled out of it. And from this moment forward, every room you step into, every person you entertain, every energy you allow, understands one thing, whether they realize it consciously or not. You are not the easiest person to hurt anymore. You are the last person they should have hurt. They showed their nature. You found your own. They proved they are predators. You discovered you are evolution. Remember that the next time your chest hurts. Remember that the next time you miss their mask. Remember that every time you're tempted to shrink so someone else can feel big. You didn't go through all of that to return to your knees. Stand up, inside first. Let them feel the shift without a single word from your mouth. Because now, the game is simple. They can keep their teeth. You'll keep your throne. And here's where it seals shut. Right here, right now. Because the most dangerous part of your transformation isn't the anger. It isn't the clarity. It isn't even the way you can now see through people like cheap glass. It's the calm, that eerie, settled calm that shows up when someone who used to control your emotions suddenly realizes they can't reach you anymore. The calm that makes predators uneasy because they don't know if you've forgiven them or if you've simply outgrown the need to react. You're not loud about it. You don't announce it. You don't post cryptic messages or give warning speeches. You just stop responding the way you used to. And that's silence. That's not emptiness. That's dominance. Because silence after knowledge is never weakness. Silence after awareness is calculation. You see, the old version of you needed closure, explanations, apologies, accountability. The old you wanted people to admit what they did so you could finally exhale. But this version understands something terrifyingly simple. People reveal themselves whether they confess or not. Their actions already testified. Their patterns already spoke. Their treatment of you already told the truth, louder than any apology ever could. So you don't chase closure anymore. You are the closure. You don't ask for respect. You withdraw access. You don't beg for honesty. You observe behavior. You don't fight to be understood. You choose to be selective. And suddenly, the power dynamic flips. The same people who once felt comfortable hurting you now feel strangely unsettled around you. They can't quite explain it, but something about you feels off. Not broken, not angry, untouchable. They sense that they no longer live rent-free in your head. They feel that their words don't land the same. They notice you don't flinch, don't over-explain, don't scramble to fix the discomfort they created. And that's when it hits them. They didn't lose you when they hurt you. They lost you when you understood them. Understanding is the point of no return, because once you truly understand someone's nature, you can never unsee it. You can pretend, you can be polite, you can be civil, but you can never again be vulnerable in the same blind way. And that's not bitterness. That's wisdom earned in blood. You didn't become heartless. You became heart literate. You know what genuine care feels like now, because you've experienced its counterfeit. You know what safety feels like now, because you survived emotional warfare. You know what love is supposed to sound like, because you've heard manipulation whisper sweet lies. And from this moment on, your standards aren't rules. They're instincts. Your intuition doesn't scream anymore. It doesn't have to. It whispers, and you listen. That's how you know you've crossed the threshold. You no longer fantasize about revenge scenes where they finally get it. You no longer rehearse conversations that will never happen. You no longer hope they'll wake up and change. You accept them exactly as they are, and then you move accordingly. That's power in its purest form. The kind of power that doesn't need validation. The kind of power that doesn't need witnesses. The kind of power that doesn't need to destroy anyone, because it simply refuses to be available for destruction. They'll feel it later. Not today. Later. When they try the same tactics on someone else, and it doesn't work the way it used to. When they realize you were the one thing making them feel powerful. When they notice the rooms feel emptier without your energy feeding their ego. When they catch themselves thinking about you at random moments. Not with nostalgia, but confusion. How did I lose access to someone like that? They won't ask it out loud. They'll just feel it in the pit of their stomach. Meanwhile, you're elsewhere, building, observing, selecting carefully. No rush, no hunger, no need to prove anything. You've already proven it to yourself. You survived being misunderstood. You survived being minimized. You survived being used as a resource instead of cherished as a soul. And instead of letting it turn you cruel, it turned you precise. You still have warmth, but it's intentional now. You still have love, but it's guarded now. You still have depth, but not everyone gets to swim there. You learned the lesson most people never do. Not everyone who smiles is safe. Not everyone who cries is sincere. Not everyone who needs you deserves you. And the most dangerous predators, they don't look like monsters. They look like friends. They sound like lovers. They wear familiarity as camouflage. You saw through that. That alone puts you in a different category of human being. So don't ever apologize for who you became to survive what they put you through. Don't ever water yourself down so people who never protected you can feel comfortable again. You didn't lose your innocence. You upgraded your awareness. You didn't become cold. You became selective. You didn't harden your heart. You armored it with truth. You wore the victim mask long enough for the real threats to reveal themselves. That chapter is done. From here on out, you don't announce your strength. You don't flex your growth. You don't warn anyone. You simply move different. And anyone who mistakes your silence for weakness again, they'll never get close enough to try. Because now, you don't just survive predators. You outgrow them. And that's the ending they never saw coming. There you are, the quiet epicenter they swore was harmless, while they raised their glasses over your silence and called it peace. You remember that, don't you? The toasts, the smiles, the way they clinked their glasses on the grave of your voice like it was some cute little funeral for your feelings. Look how calm you are. Look how mature you are. Translation: look how convenient you are while we bleed out our chaos into you and walk away lighter. You weren't calm, you were containment, because you weren't just quiet. You were a vault swallowing hurricanes that would have broken their little skeleton minds in half. You were the pressure valve nobody checked, the storm radio nobody tuned to, the lightning rod standing alone in the yard while everyone else enjoyed a sunny forecast built on your burns. They toasted your silence because they never understood the cost of it. They thought your silence meant you were harmless, that you were weak, that you were the background character whose only job was to absorb impact and never shatter. They loved your silence as long as it protected them, as long as it meant their storms went somewhere else, into your chest, into your sleep, into your nervous system. Tell me, how many times did you sit there, nodding, listening, being their free therapist, their emotional landfill, while your own lungs filled with things you never said? How many storms did you swallow whole so they could breathe easier? And now look at them, choking on the very weather they refused to acknowledge lived inside you. You see the irony, don't you? The divine little plot twist. The same people who celebrated your silence are now gasping, clawing at the air, drowning in the waves you used to hold back alone. The storms didn't disappear when you went quiet. Oh no, they were just delayed, deferred, concentrated. Quiet doesn't mean empty. Quiet means loaded. You were never a peaceful meadow. You were the dam. They mistook your self-control for vacancy. They mistook your restraint for absence. They mistook your mercy for weakness. And that's their favorite mistake, because you are the paradox they can't compute. You're the saint and the psychopath in the same skin. The angel that learned the language of demons just to survive the room. You are the light that went into the dark, memorized the architecture, and came back with blueprints. They wanted a soft, uncomplicated angel who never raised their voice. Instead, they got a creature forged in pressure chambers, an archive of unspoken storms. You're the calm voice in the room who has quietly rehearsed every possible outcome 10 steps ahead. That's why you scare them. They can't figure out how someone so nice sees through their entire act. They can't figure out how someone so quiet can move the entire board without making a sound. Because you were never just kind. You were studying. You watched who laughed when you dimmed yourself. You watched who only called when they needed a container. You watched who disappeared when you finally needed someone to hold you. And every time you swallowed another storm, something evolved. Do you know what repeated suppression does to a soul like yours? It doesn't break you. It distills you. At first you thought the goal was to be good, to be agreeable, to be the safe one, the stable one, the listener, the healer, the forgiver. You thought if you absorbed enough damage, they would finally feel safe enough to stop hurting you. Instead, they felt safe enough to hurt you more. That's the joke. They saw your silence as an invitation, not a boundary. Oh, you don't react? Perfect. We can unload more. We can disrespect more. We can cross lines, redraw them, erase them completely. You'll stay. You always stay. You always smile. You always talk about understanding and empathy. And you did. You did the angel thing perfectly. You did the I get it. They were hurt, too, script. So while you almost convinced yourself you deserved to be the lightning rod for everyone's unresolved childhood. But here's where the story breaks in your favor. Somewhere along the way, the angel started watching like a demon. You started noticing patterns. Who only loved you when you were convenient. Who only praised you when your needs were dead on arrival. Who only honored your strength when it meant you carrying what would have crushed them. You started to see that your silence was not noble. It was weaponized against you. You realized that every time you swallowed a storm for them, you saved them from consequences they needed to face. You rescued people from lessons they were supposed to learn alone. And in return, they celebrated your strength, while quietly expecting you to die under the weight of it. But you didn't die, did you? No, you mutated. You evolved from the quiet healer into something far more dangerous. A person who knows exactly how much damage they can survive. Do you understand how terrifying that makes you? Everyone else is negotiating with fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of abandonment, fear of judgment. You have already choked on all of that in silence and lived. You've done emotional waterboarding and came back with a smile they can't decode. They're terrified of storms. You became one. Not the screaming, chaotic storm that knocks over everything without aim. No, you're the precision storm, the surgical hurricane, the one that knows when to stay quiet, when to strike, when to disappear, when to arrive unannounced with an entire new version of yourself they didn't prepare for. That's the evolution through pain. You learned control inside chaos. You learned clarity inside confusion. You learned power inside powerlessness. They toasted your silence because they thought it meant you'd never leave. They never imagined your silence was you mapping the exits. You're not unpredictable because you're impulsive. You're unpredictable because you are deeply calculated. That's what they can't stand. They expected your break to look messy, shouting, crying, begging, posting about them, losing control. They would have loved that. That would have kept you in a box they understand. Crazy, emotional, unstable. But you didn't give them that. You did something far worse. You went silent, and then you changed. You started saying no without essays. You started disappearing from rooms that drained you. You started answering texts 3 days late, or not at all. You started declining invitations to tables where you used to bleed for free. And suddenly, the room felt different to them. Suddenly, the easy one wasn't easy anymore. Suddenly, the emotional sponge wasn't absorbing. Suddenly, the storm they were dumping into now had boundaries, angles, a spine made of thunder. That's when they began to choke. Because without you absorbing their storms, they had to meet their own weather. They had to face anxiety they used to hand to you. They had to feel guilt without you cushioning it with empathy. They had to sit with the emptiness that appears when the person they drained finally plugs the leak. You know what they call that? Karma? No, that's just redistribution. This is what happens when an angel stops volunteering for crucifixions they never deserved. You didn't become evil. You became accurate. You learned that you can still be kind without being consumed. You learned that your heart can stay soft while your boundaries turn to steel. You learned that your empathy is not a public utility. It's a privilege that must be earned. Let's talk about that duality they can't wrap their heads around. By day, you're still the one who understands too much. You see the wounds behind people's cruelty. You hear the tremor beneath their arrogance. You know which joke is a disguise and which smile is a shield. You see too deeply. That's your curse. That's your halo. But beneath that halo, there's something else now. Something sharp. You've acquired what they'd call darkness. But it's not mindless malice. It's selective permission. You don't give everyone access anymore. You don't explain yourself 10 times. You don't justify your boundaries. You don't turn every betrayal into a spiritual lesson that excuses the attacker. You've become both surgeon and executioner, but not of people, of patterns. You're killing old versions of you that participated in your own draining. You're executing habits that made you easy prey. You're amputating connections that only survived by feeding on your self-betrayal. Angel, demon, light, dark. It's all just language for one thing. You stopped abandoning yourself. And that, right there, is the storm they cannot handle. Because once you stop abandoning yourself, their favorite game ends. They can't guilt you back into their control. They can't use your empathy as a chain. They can't call you selfish for no longer dying on command. You know what they do instead? They flip the narrative. You become changed. You're different now. You've become cold. You've become distant. You're not the same person anymore. And they're absolutely right. You're not. The version of you they miss was a coffin they kept flowers on. Polite, quiet, always ready to listen, never ready to leave. That version of you shattered silently so they could sleep soundly. That version is gone. In its place is something else. A sovereign storm with a face. You look the same on the outside, maybe even calmer. But inside, the architecture is unrecognizable. You're less reactive, more decisive, less apologetic, more precise. You don't chase, you don't grovel, you don't beg to stay where your soul is being starved. That's what evolution through pain looks like. Cleaner choices, sharper energy, shorter tolerance for nonsense. And the most terrifying thing about you now, you still look like the nice one. You still have the soft eyes, the listening posture, the calm tone. People meeting you for the first time think, "What a gentle soul." They have no idea that you carry entire graveyards of former selves inside you. They don't know you've buried versions of yourself that bled out for people who wouldn't even bring bandages. You're the sweetest apocalypse alive. The saint who can walk away mid-sentence and never come back. The angel who can cut the cord and sleep peacefully. The healer who no longer accepts patients who stab between sessions. They don't understand how you can care and still cut them off. How you can empathize and still enforce distance. How you can forgive and still never open that door again. But that's the Joker card you hold now. You're not controlled by your love anymore. You still love deeply, but you no longer love at your own expense. You no longer love in ways that require your self-erasure. You no longer confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. And in a world that thrives on people being addicted to their own abandonment, someone like you, healed enough to protect yourself, is a glitch in the system. Unpredictability is your power now, not the chaotic kind, not the "I might explode at any moment" unpredictability. That's cheap. You've seen that. You've forgiven that. Your unpredictability is rooted in one simple truth. No one can accurately predict how far you'll go to protect your peace now. Because you know what you've survived. People can't threaten you with loneliness. You've eaten dinner with your own ghosts and made peace with them. They can't threaten you with abandonment. You've already watched people walk away when you needed them most. They can't threaten you with not being understood. You've spent years translating your soul to those who were never listening. You have already tasted every blade they're holding. There's nothing left for you to fear. That makes you lethal, not because you want to hurt anyone, but because you are finally willing to let them hurt without you. You're done catching karma on their behalf. You're done intercepting consequences meant for them. You're done absorbing storms that were never yours to hold. So now the sky is honest. The storms are going where they belong. They're choking on the winds you used to swallow without a sound. They are meeting their own thunder with no one left to stand between them and impact. And they will call it unfair. They will call it cruelty. They will call it your change. But you and I both know this isn't cruelty. This is balance. This is what happens when the soul that kept the world from collapsing on ungrateful people finally retires from the unpaid position. So here's the part they'll never admit, but you've already felt in the air. They missed you, not you, the person. You, the shield, the emotional firewall, the storm sponge, the invisible backbone of their stability. They miss having somewhere to dump. They miss the silent nods. They miss the "it's okay, I understand" that set them free from accountability. They don't know how to function without that. Good. Let them learn. Your job was never to be their weather management system. Your job was never to be the drain where everyone poured their unresolved storms. Your job was to live, to expand, to build, to love, to create, to become. And that's where we are now, isn't it? You're standing on the fault line between who you were and who you're becoming. Behind you, a timeline of swallowed storms and quiet funerals for your own needs. In front of you, a landscape they will never be able to predict. Because this new version of you, they speak, they choose, they say no. They leave rooms. They walk away from tables that demand their soul as payment. This is where your power stops feeling theoretical and starts feeling dangerous. You know why? Because once you stop living as a container for other people's storms, you finally have the capacity to build your own climate. Not surviving, designing, not reacting, creating. You are no longer the human umbrella. You are the architect of your own atmosphere. And that is the role they never wanted you to remember you had. So breathe. Feel that. That's the air clearing around you now that you're not dragging everyone else's weather behind you. That tightness in your chest, loosening when you say no the first time. That silence after you don't explain yourself. That calm when you choose you and nothing explodes. That's what real power feels like. Not control over others. Control over access. Who gets your time? Who gets your energy? Who gets your secrets? Who gets to stand under your sky at all? They toasted your silence like it was your final form. They thought your quiet was the end of your story. They had no idea it was the incubation chamber. They had no idea they were drinking to the birth of something that would one day terrify them. A version of you that remembers their storms, remembers their words, remembers their absence, and no longer trades self-respect for belonging. So go ahead. Let them choke on the weather they ignored. Let them struggle under the thunder they once offloaded into you while calling you so strong. Let them finally feel the full weight of what you carried. And you rise, not as the martyr, not as the background character, not as the emotional landfill. You rise as the storm they can't predict, the light they can't extinguish, the saint with a psychopath's clarity, the angel with demon-proof boundaries. You don't need revenge. Your evolution is already killing every version of the story where they got to win. Keep your silence, but make it different now. Not the silence of suppression, the silence of strategy, the silence of someone who knows their worth so deeply they no longer need to announce it. When you finally speak, it will not be to defend yourself. It will be to declare direction. And when you move, it will not be to chase. It will be to build a life so aligned with your soul that anyone who treated you like you were disposable feels the earthquake from miles away. They toasted your silence. They're choking on their storms. And you're just getting started. And the wildest part, they still don't understand what actually changed. They think the danger is that you might speak. They think the threat is that you might expose them. They think the storm is coming because you're angry. No, that's how amateurs think. The real shift, the irreversible one, is that you no longer need to prove anything to anyone who benefited from misunderstanding you. That's what ends eras. Because once a person like you stops trying to be seen by people committed to blindness, the power dynamic collapses instantly. You don't have to announce your exit. You don't have to justify your distance. You don't have to narrate your growth. You don't even have to win the argument. You already won the moment you stopped explaining your pain to people who used it as entertainment. That's when the storm becomes silent again. But this time, it's aimed. You see, before, your silence was sacrificial. Now it's intentional. Before, it leaked life out of you. Now it conserves energy like a loaded chamber. You've learned something most people never do. That not everyone deserves access to your internal weather report. Not everyone deserves to know what you're planning, healing, building, or becoming. Some people only understand you well enough to sabotage you, and that awareness alone has elevated you above entire rooms. You don't disappear out of fear anymore. You disappear out of precision. You've noticed it, haven't you? The way people lean forward when you don't over-explain. The way silence suddenly makes them nervous when it's no longer submission. The way your calm now carries weight, not obligation. That's because silence in the hands of someone who finally chose themselves is no longer empty. It's a warning label. They can feel it, but they can't name it. Conversations feel different around you. Jokes land flatter. Manipulation stalls mid-sentence. Emotional hooks don't catch the way they used to. People pause before crossing lines they once sprinted over. Why? Because you're no longer leaking permission. You're no longer advertising access. And that, right there, is when they realize something too late. You were never quiet because you lacked power. You were quiet because you had too much of it, and nowhere safe to put it. Until now, pain didn't make you cruel. It made you selective. Trauma didn't hollow you out. It carved precision into your instincts. You learned the difference between being open and being available, between compassion and compliance, between love and self-erasure. You learned that your empathy is sacred, not communal property. And once that lesson locks in, there is no reverting. You don't regress back into smaller versions of yourself just to make others comfortable. You don't dim the clarity you fought hell to earn. You don't apologize for the spine you grew in the dark, because you remember exactly how much it cost. You remember the nights you lay awake, processing emotions that weren't even yours. The days you showed up hollow so others could feel whole. The way your needs were always later, after, someday, until you realized someday never comes for people who never ask. You remember what it felt like to be strong for everyone and protected by no one. And that memory is your anchor now. It keeps you from going back. So when they look at you and say, "You're different," what they really mean is, you no longer bleed where we can reach. And that terrifies them, because they were never prepared to face life without you absorbing the shock. But here's the final truth, the one that seals it, the one that ends the story cleanly. You didn't take the storms away from them. You simply stopped standing in front of them. And that's not betrayal. That's alignment. You gave more than enough. You carried more than was fair. You stayed longer than was healthy. You tried harder than was required. And when you finally stepped aside, the universe did what it always does when someone stops interfering with the lesson. It balanced the scales.